let me officially welcome all of you to IFDM 2018. We have nearly 400 delegates here today from 30 countries from around the world. This conference has come back to where it started. The very first International Forum on Disability Management was held here in 2002 in Vancouver. IFDM is a world forum offering global leadership, cutting-edge solutions, and evidence-based research findings for key government, business, and labor leaders, as well as representatives from the disability management and return-to-work provider communities. In recognizing that we all play a role, I'd like to share my experiences in the field for almost 20 years. I spent most of my career in the public service of Canada. I was fortunate to be the Deputy Minister or head of a number of ministries. My final position was titled Clerk of the Privy Council, and in that role I was head of the public service and the Prime Minister's principal advisor. You know, with a workforce of 250,000 employees, I became well aware of the financial and human costs to the government, and more importantly, to our ability to serve Canadians as a result of our employees who are unable to work due to a physical or mental disability. One incident particularly hit home to me. When I was appointed as head of my first department, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, I was fortunate enough to have a driver who got me to work and back and to all my meetings during the day. He was a lovely man, and we quickly became great colleagues, in fact, friends to this day. One day, my driver went up on his roof to repair his chimney, and when he stepped on his ladder to come down, the ladder let go, and my driver came down on top of it. He severed his spinal cord, and he has never been able to walk again. Now, as a relatively head of the department, a new deputy minister, this wasn't going to be a problem. I'd find him another job. In fact, I'd even reintegrate him back into the role of as my driver. At this moment in my career, ladies and gentlemen, I became acutely aware of the real costs of long-term disability to my driver and to the government. There was virtually no capacity in my ministry to support my driver's reintegration back into the department. No disability management program, no funding to address his return to work. I had kind of nowhere to turn, and despite all my efforts as the head of this department, my driver never worked again. Ladies and gentlemen, we all have our own stories of hope lost and the pain and suffering by those who have not been able to return to productive work because of their disability. This is the real reason we are attending this conference today. We are here to share our ideas, our analytical findings, and our experiences in order that employees like my driver do work again. From IFDM 2002, hosted here in Vancouver, the conference has been to Maastricht, Brisbane, Berlin, Los Angeles, London, UK, Melbourne, and the last was in Kuala Lumpur, which I was fortunate enough to attend. And now we're back here. We're back here in Vancouver, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Wouldn't you agree to that? Wonderful place. But our journey does not end here. In 2 years, our friends from Belgium will host IFDM 2020, followed by Germany in 2021. And as you will witness later in this morning's program, these events will be moving under the auspices of the International Social Security Association in Geneva, starting in 2024, but more on that later. This remarkable journey around the world is perhaps a reflection of the fact that regardless of who we are, the potential of suffering a mental or a physical health impairment is real. Each one of the IFDMs has greatly contributed towards finding solutions to the benefit of disabled workers, employers, and our societies at large. And for that, we thank all of you for your support and your input and for being here this week. These conferences has also helped foster international networks, professional associations, and of course, most importantly, I think, professional friendships, all with a singular goal of fostering innovation through strong, thoughtful leadership and best practices outcome agenda. This has led to better collaboration amongst all of us, to increased commitment, and much improved communication in the areas of return to work and disability management. Our team designed your conference agenda with these goals in mind. And I'm proud to say that we have with us today representatives from all stakeholder groups. That is, employers, unions, government representatives, persons with disabilities, workers' compensation boards, and private providers. What brings us all together is that shared vision of making a difference economically, socially, and psychologically for those affected by a mental or a physical health impairment. You know, what strikes me is how often simple solutions can be found with far-reaching benefits for all those affected. Nobody told me about hand controls for my driver. If we maybe thought of that, he could be still driving today. All of you know the impact of mental or physical disability goes far beyond the impact on the individual. There are many interlocking pieces to this puzzle. Finding long-term solutions which ultimately ensure successful continued economic participation of people with disabilities requires that all of us work together, and that's why we're here. The IFDMs around the world have largely focused on achieving better return-to-work outcomes for individuals who acquire a mental or a physical impairment during their working life. Over 80% of disabilities occur during that time, and we strongly believe that when a workplace accommodates their own workers, regardless of the nature of disability, we are building a culture of accommodation. We reduce stigma and build acceptance. We focus on abilities, not disabilities. We promote integration, not segregation. And organizations build toolkits designed to maintain valued employment relationships. With this in mind, I want to congratulate all of you for being here. Many of you traveled from distant corners of the world, and again, we thank you for that. And for those of you not familiar with this great country, Canada, it actually is a 7-hour plane trip from the East Coast to the West Coast, so thank you all Canadians who are here as well. It is individual and organizational leadership, vision, and an unwavering belief that we can do better which drives us all. And all too often, like myself, it's those personal experiences, which we also heard this morning, which nudges us forward and drives us towards solutions. And with that, I would now like to introduce two other colleagues, two key leaders from, may I say, opposing sides of the workplace, but who have collaborated on a shared vision, always, although maybe not always executed in a harmonious fashion. Ken Newman, one of the co-chairs of Pacific Coast University, is also National Director for the United Steelworkers. And Lawrence Watkins, Vice President, Health and Safety for Tech Resources. And if you don't know Tech Resources, it's a major resource company whose head office is here in Vancouver. Lawrence, on short notice and with much appreciation, agreed to replace our other co-chair, Dean Windsor from Tech, who happens to be in Asia on business. So, gentlemen, come forward. Ken first.
Well, thank you very much, Wayne, and good morning, dear delegates and guests. First of all, as Wayne just said, that the fact is that from labor and from business is that, just for the record, I get along with all the employers. They sometimes just don't see it my way. So I continue to work at that. Look, it is a great honor to be here this morning to speak before this very important gathering. For 20 years, our union has been involved in the work of NIDMAR and the Pacific Coast University. I have proudly served as a member of the board and co-chair of NIDMAR and the university. As a union, the issue of disability and return to work has always been in the forefront of the work we do to protect and to assist our members. For example, in 2012, the United Steelworkers signed a license agreement with International Disability Standards Council to help workers and employers achieve better returns for work outcomes for injured workers and workers with disabilities. The agreement allows workers and employers to access the international adopted return to work self-assessment tool. The agreement is grounded in jointly developed critical return to work policies and practices developed as a major effort between a number of large employers, Canadian employers, and unions. The self-assessment tool provides practices considered essential for any effective return to work program. We have an absolute obligation to ensure that injured and disabled workers can maintain employment, continue to support their families, and rebuild all too often shattered lives. Access to this return to work guide can assist in this process. The Steelworkers have a long and proud history of standing by our members who are injured or living with disabilities. We have launched innovative projects to ensure that these members that rightfully maintain their rightful place in society. The agreement was just another example of our ongoing commitment. Last year, we commemorated the 25th anniversary of the terrible Canadian workplace tragedy, the Westray mine explosion that killed 26 workers. With approximately 1,000 workers killed annually in Canada, it is clear that devastating accidents continue. However, we must not forget that every worker that loses their life through an industrial accident or disease, not counting non-workplace injuries and illnesses, 20 workers suffer permanent, physical, or mental impairment, often forever, affecting every aspect of their life. A sad reality across Canada and around the world is that suffering a permanent physical and mental impairment also means the loss of gainful employment. All too many times, injured and disabled workers are pushed to the margins of society. Statistics show that a bleak situation faced by people with disabilities. In Canada, the employment rate for people with disabilities is 49%, compared to 79% of those without disabilities. The income rate for those with more severe disabilities is on average less than half of those with no disabilities. In addition, there's 1.2 million Canadians with disabilities that live in poverty. This accounts for almost 25% of all people living in poverty across this great country. Why is all of this so important? We call ourselves, the Steelworkers, the Health and Safety Union. Our early days as a union were in the mines, the mills, the smelters, and the blast furnaces. These were some of the most dangerous workplaces and called for extreme vigilance on part of the worker, often just to survive their shift. We've always maintained that workers should leave for work and return home in the same shape they left in. No one goes to work to get killed or disabled. While our highest priority is preventing workplace death or injury, we know that tragedies happen. When it does, we need to be there to help those affected members. A workplace injury can affect the worker in many ways. Usually, one of the most first concerns is the disruption of their income. We all depend on our income to provide for ourselves and for our families. To suddenly have that jeopardy can and will be devastating. As a union, we have a long history of training worker advocates to assist members to navigate the usually complex compensation system. Injured workers want to go back to work and once again feel like they are contributing to society and providing for themselves and for their families. We know that this is important to provide a safe and timely return to work for injured workers. The work that you all do is vital to helping us understand the key factors that are successful in return to work programs. It is why the work of NIDMAR and the Pacific Coast University is so important. Every 3 years, our union holds a national policy conference to discuss and debate the direction the union will be taking into the future. In 2016, we had a resolution that was unanimously adopted by our delegates that passed supporting and encouraging participation with NIDMAR and the Pacific Coast University. The challenges facing workers with disabilities must be a top priority for our society, and our union will continue to lead the way to ensure that these workers continue to hold their rightful place in society. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. G'day. Translation, good morning, everyone. I'm fortunate enough to speak 2 languages, English and Australian. English is not my first, so please bear with me. TEC is very proud to be a diamond sponsor of the conference and a major supporter of the Pacific Coast University for Workplace Health Sciences. Unfortunately, Dean Windsor is not able to be here, and he sends his apologies. But along with a number of my colleagues here today, we are delighted to represent TEC Resources. Sustainability and safety are core values at TEC. Our health and safety vision is everyone going home safe and healthy every day. It's a vision that we're working very hard to achieve, and we're definitely improving. Compared to 7 years ago, we've reduced the number of high potential incidents by almost a factor of 5. These are incidents that had the potential to result in serious injuries or fatalities. Over the same period, we've almost halved the number of injuries requiring medical attention, lost time, or modified work. As an example of this improvement, I recently had the honour of celebrating with one of our teams that have now just surpassed 10 years lost time injury free. And while these improvements are great, absolutely without denial, we still have a long way to go, and we have an obligation to do a lot better. We're still having too many injuries in the workplace and too many high potential incidents. It's quite easy to report on a regular basis on our health and safety statistics, but behind every number is a story, a human story. The numbers don't tell us how the injury or the illness may have impacted the life of one of our valued employees or contractors, or certainly the lives of their loved ones, friends, and colleagues. The impact may be temporary in nature, or sadly, in some instances, for the rest of their lives. It might be as simple as not being able to play soccer with the kids for a few months as a result of a foot injury. Or in the case of respiratory disease, the impacts can be much more severe, including a move out of a much beloved job, reduced mobility due to the loss of lung function, or the potential reduction in life itself. Our core value of sustainability requires us to act responsibly and strive to make a positive contribution to our communities. Being welcomed where we operate demands responsible social, economic, and environmental performance in everything we do. This obviously extends to looking after our people in the event that they're hurt or become ill. Our first goal, obviously, is to prevent occupational injuries and illnesses, but if they do occur, we must demonstrate a culture of care and apply professional, supportive disability management and return to work practices. We're not able to do this without the support of the people in this room, be they health professionals, regulators, or academic researchers. We're very thankful for the work that you do. The contribution you make towards helping teams like ours are making workplaces both safer and healthier. And there remains significant opportunity for enhanced collaboration and improved outcomes by having industry, labour organisations and educational institutions working together. As an example, TEC and the United Steelworkers are co-chairing the Board of Governors for the Pacific Coast University for Workplace Health Sciences, Canada's only statutory university with a mandate to focus on all aspects of integrated workplace health. TEC is proud to be a sponsor of this conference, and I encourage everyone this week to look for a best practice or a positive change that you can take back to your organisation to make a difference in people's lives. We hope you enjoy it. We wish you safe travels, and I personally wish you and your families the very best of health and happiness. Thank you.